Do you love making music? Do you wish you had more time to do it? Do you spend your day dreaming about the songs and sounds you could make if only you didn't have so many obligations? Me too. Then how come when we finally have the time to make music, it's so hard to start? Is it because we don't love it? Is it because we're afraid? Why do we waste our time procrastinating? In this episode of the Music Production Podcast, we'll discuss procrastination, why we do it, and especially on the things we love, like making music. And once we understand why we procrastinate, I'll give you 3 tips that help me get past procrastination and get to work. If you are a procrastinator when it comes to making music, then you're not alone. I struggle with it all the time. And the more time I have, the more I tend to procrastinate. When I have time to make music, I often turn to mundane chores around my house. I wash dishes, I vacuum, I make phone calls, I pay the bills. If you want me to get things done around the house, tell me I have a whole day to make as much music as I want. I'll get every chore done before I get a chance to start making any music. And then there's another type of procrastination. It's a little more sneaky because it feels productive. That's when I rearrange my studio, I set things up, I lay out my instruments, I test out new gear, I experiment with my cameras and my lighting. I do all this work that feels productive, but really I'm just avoiding the actual making of the music. And that's because chores are safe. They're easy. They will get done. They're not very challenging intellectually or emotionally. We're probably not going to fail. If I start washing the dishes will get clean. If I vacuum the rug will get clean. But making music is different. It's scary. I might not make anything any good. I might fail. I might not succeed. The song I make might turn out to be trash, and people might not like it. Here's some words from a recent blog from Seth Godin. The truth is that if we stop doing chores, we have to do the real work instead. The things that aren't repeatable or proven, the things that are emotionally difficult, creatively challenging, or simply requiring exploration and guts to pursue. That's creative work. It's difficult. It's hard to do. Chores are simple and easy, and they feel productive, so they make us feel like we've done something. But sitting down to make music is a little scary and challenging because you never know what you're going to get, and you never know if you're going to succeed. That's why I think we procrastinate so much. Now that we understand why we procrastinate, what can we do to fix it? Here's 3 things I like to do. Number 1, schedule it. Put your creative time on the calendar. Treat it like a job. You go to work every day not because you can't wait to get to work. It's because you're expected to be there at a specific time every single day. You have to go. You didn't graduate high school because you loved going. You graduated because that bell rang at a certain time in the morning, and if you weren't there, you didn't get credit. Every Thursday at 5 o'clock, I have band practice, and that's often after a long days of work, and sometimes there's not a lot of time between when I get home and band practice starts. I don't always feel like doing it, but it's on the calendar, and I got 2 of my friends coming over expecting to make music with me every day, so I have to show up. Now, once they get there, I tend to get excited about it. Despite how tired I am, we feed off each other and that energy comes together and we start making music. We get to work because we've made a commitment to each other that we are supposed to be making music this time every single week, and it gets done. The thing is, I can't miss it. I don't want to let the other guys down. I have something to lose, and that's disappointing my friends and perhaps making them decide they don't want to play music with me anymore. So there's a consequence. Just like if you don't go to work, there's a consequence. We don't have consequences when it comes to making our music. So we should try to build them in for ourselves by putting it on a schedule and letting people know that, hey, this is what I do every Thursday at 5 o'clock, or this is what I do at this time every day. I make music. We are saying to the world that we have this responsibility, and that responsibility will likely make you feel like you have to live up to it. So you'll take action, you'll get to work. So think of ways you can make it slightly painful for yourself to not make music. Maybe try doing a live stream, share your work with the world. I find if I'm live streaming or there are people watching me, I don't procrastinate as much. I get to work, and I don't get distracted as much as well. I don't go online. I don't check my phone. When I know I'm being watched, whether it's through other bandmates, live streaming, or just the fact that I said I was going to be doing this thing for a certain amount of time, I feel like I have to live up to that. And if you put yourself in a corner like that, you'll probably find that you're more likely to get to work and actually get the work done. So give yourself a set time to make music, whether it's every day or a couple times a week, and stick to it. Make it a non-negotiable. It's just what you do at that time, the same as if you had a meeting, if you had to be at work. It's just what you have to do. There's no questioning whether you're going to do it or not. Now that you've put your music making on a schedule, the next step is to make it as easy as possible to begin. Do the least amount possible to move forward. We want to start small and be consistent. We'll build the habit of showing up first, and then we can add the intensity later. In a way, we want to kind of fool ourselves into starting by making it as easy as possible to get going. We want to create the least amount of friction to the first step of doing whatever it is we want to do. Just make completing that first step the goal. In terms of making music, that might be having your instrument out, ready to play, having your setup or your workstation ready to go so you just turn it on and you can start getting to work. Or if it was like going to the gym or exercise, you might put out your exercise clothes the night before so you don't have to pick them out in the morning. The goal is to put on your exercise clothes. Make your goal picking up your guitar or turning on your DAW. When I first started playing guitar at the age of 14, I really wanted to get better fast. So I made it a point to just play my guitar every single day. It didn't matter how long. I would try to play as much as possible, and it was easy because I loved it. But even on the days when I didn't want to do it, I would make sure I got to it just for a few minutes. I at least picked it up. And on the days when I didn't have much time, it'd be right before bed. I at least touched the guitar and played it a little bit. I started to build a streak that I didn't want to break. And I didn't really understand how wise that was at the time, but it got this pattern of consistency and this habit going. Jerry Seinfeld talked about that with writing jokes. Every day he writes a joke, he puts an X on the calendar, and pretty soon you start to build up a streak, and you don't want to break that streak. So the goal becomes, don't break the streak, just spend some time doing it. I did a podcast about that if you want to listen to it in more detail. Speaking of the podcast, I procrastinated starting this podcast for years, really. I had these ideas of all these big things I wanted to do, how it was going to be videos, going to have tutorials, it was going to have a cool opening, it was going to have segments. The idea got so big that I just kept putting it off because I didn't know where to start, and it was scary, and it was a big project. Until one day where I just decided, what's the least amount of work I have to do? And that was to just set up a microphone and just start talking. No video, no tutorials, no theme song even, just talk. Just see if I could even do it. And once I got started, I found I could do it. And I had a few ideas already written down, so I recorded like 3 or 4 podcasts that first day. Once you start, momentum starts to build and it becomes easier to keep going. That's what we're really trying to do with this tip. Trying to break it down into the least amount of effort possible. So for instance, during the work week, one thing that helps me get through the work week is to just think of the wake-ups I have to do. The hardest part for me is usually just getting out of bed early in the morning. It's often still dark outside. So I just think about wake-ups. If I can wake up in the morning and get out of bed, I've already completed the goal. And I can say to myself, all right, woke up on Monday, only 4 more to go. Tuesday, 3 more to go. And the goal becomes a really simple goal, and the rest of the process just falls into place once I start going. The author Matthew Dix, who was also on this podcast, talked about this idea of exercise for 11 minutes. He found a study that showed that people that exercise for just 11 minutes a day live longer. They don't die as much. And if you go up to 22 minutes, it's even better. It's really not a lot of time. It's only 1% of your day about. So understanding that you're really only committing to a small thing can help you get going. It's not as daunting. And that's really the idea behind my book, The 5-Minute Music Producer. There's 365 activities, one for each day of the year, and they should all take you about 5 minutes each to complete. And the point is, it gets you in the seat and going. I can often do something if I know it's only going to take me 5 minutes. And if that's all I get done, then I completed the goal. But what usually happens when you start doing something that you love is you get caught up in it, you get excited about it, and you get interested in it. You kind of like push that rock down the mountain, and then the rock just rolls, rock and roll. So you just want to get started. If you want specific things to do, you can check out my book, but it's really just about getting started. Make it as easy as possible to get started. Once you've built the habit of getting started and showing up, you can start adding complexity to that habit, but let's build the habit first and make it as easy to begin as possible. So now that we've scheduled it, now that we've made it as easy as possible to begin, the third thing you can do is make this part of your identity. Tell yourself, I'm the kind of person that makes music every single day. We're all very attached to our identities, and often when our identities are challenged is when we get the most upset and we feel the most threatened. You might think you're a nice person, and then someone says something about you that's nasty, you get upset and you defend that. And we want to sort of build this kind of thinking into our own identity with our music making. Tell yourself, I'm the kind of person that does this. I'm the kind of person that makes music. I'm the kind of person that is always thinking about music. I'm the kind of person that finishes songs. I'm the kind of person that shows up and makes music every single day, no matter what. And just let this ingrain into yourself. I try to do this with my exercise. I'm the kind of person that doesn't miss a workout. Do I miss workouts? Occasionally. But I make it there way more often when I tell myself, I'm the kind of person that does this. When it's on my schedule at a certain time, and when I make it easy, I only have to do a little bit. I just have to show up, maybe just put on my exercise clothes and jump around for a few minutes. I tend to keep going, and I show up more often because I try to make it my identity, because I don't want to be the kind of person who does not work out every day. I don't want to be the kind of person who does not make music every day. The entire strategy I've had to build my live packs, my tutorials, courses, and everything is all because I've stayed consistent with it. And I've tried to always do one thing every day to move forward with it. Whether it's just I edit something, I add a little, I do a little mixing. I try to at least do one thing every day. And that's kind of been something I've been telling myself over the years. So I'm the kind of person that works on his music every single day. And sometimes the best way to get me actually making music is when I start to feel like that's not true anymore. I've often joked on the music production podcast that I feel like I talk about making music more than I actually do it. And that would be funny if it wasn't true, because a lot of times when I say that, I realize, wow, I haven't actually made any music in a while. I'm just sitting here talking about it. I'm just thinking about it. And then I start to say, am I becoming the kind of person that only talks and thinks about making music? Or am I the kind of person that does it? And when that sort of guilt starts washing over on me, I usually make music. I get to it because I got to live up to that identity that I've created for myself. So think about the kind of person, the kind of musician you want to be, and attach that to your identity. If you can do these things, you're going to dramatically improve and get more done. If you can schedule your work, if you can make it easy to start and make it part of your identity, you're going to get things done. The first hurdle is always the hardest, and that's starting. And that's why we procrastinate. It's scary. But you might remember at school when you were younger and you had to write an essay, it was always the first paragraph that was the hardest. Once you started writing, things started to flow. So we got to find ways to trick ourselves into getting started and getting that flow going. But since you love music, probably a lot more than you liked writing those essays in school, once you get started, you're probably going to feel inspired and you're probably going to become interested. It's because you actually love it and you are excited. It's just that we have that little bit of fear to get started. But once you conquer procrastination and get started, how do you ensure that you actually make progress? Well, I've got an episode of the Music Production Podcast, number 322, that you can listen to that will help you with that. It's all about making decisions and committing to them so that you can move forward with your music. I think it might help quite a lot. Thanks a lot for listening, and remember, a little bit every day goes a long way. Take care.